Today on the show, when football meets the liturgy. No, seriously, we do indeed need heroes. Shall we talk about celibacy, our picks of the week, and so much more? The Catholic Underground starts right now. Hey, how you doing? It is time for the Catholic Underground. We're the podcast that tries to cut through the noise of the digital continent and bring you the topics that matter. It's episode number 414. I am Father Chris Decker. Joining me this week, we've got Kathleen Lee, who is the Teachus Maximus at Our Lady of Mercy School in Baton Rouge. Gracias, she says. Hey, Kathleen.
Hey, good to be here.
Also, Olivia Gulino. She's our student of life, our resident Italian food critic. Olivia joins us, as she often does.
It's true. I'm here.
That's right. Also, we got Jeff Blackwell up on the satellite there. Jeff Blackwell on the slow-moving Jeff Star 1. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Great, Father.
I restarted the graphics computer, and I didn't tell anybody. That must be what's happening. So we'll just kind of let that just animate off the screen. Yeah, it's great. Okay. And then Ed Ball is running the video up there, too. So if you like the stuff you see, then that's Ed.
There it is.
But it was my fault for the video problem. So if you're listening on the podcast, just pay no attention to what I just said.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Look good on radio.
You know, what else is happening as we go to air is some sort of a famous football game. And I think we do this pretty much every year. We are almost always, I don't know if we can say Super Bowl Sunday trademark NFL. But we're always on that same weekend, and we usually, unless the Saints are playing, the New Orleans Saints, of course, which is down here in Louisiana, we usually go on the air and we provide a football alternative. But here at the top of the show, we thought that we would talk about one of the team members of the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs playing in the 2020 Super Bowl.
Yep.
And so we're talking about Harrison Butker, who is a native of Decatur, Georgia. And lately on social media, he has been very, very public about his love of the church, most specifically his love of that which is rooted in the sacred liturgy. And so, I mean, you know, it's hard for us to, of course, I feel kind of like with football players the way that I feel about my doctor. It seems like they're getting younger and younger and younger. No, that's not it. I'm just getting older and older and older,
wow.
You know?
That's the most like grandpa thing I think you've ever said.
Yeah, okay.
My doctor just keeps getting younger.
Actually, my doctor would be happy with that because he's a little bit older than I am. But still, anyway. So Harrison is a young Catholic. And so he has now a very developed kind of Catholic education in the ways of the faith, but it wasn't well established in high school and his early college years. And so as he says in an interview with EWTN News and on the Knights of Columbus, and we'll put links to those video interviews, he says that even though he was raised in a Catholic family, it wasn't until later in his life that he found his faith as something that was meaningful, and that was whenever he was a student at Georgia Tech.
I know a few people who have come out of the Georgia Tech Catholic students collaboration. They've been pretty legit.
Doing something right, you're saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Some of my good friends come from Georgia Tech, who live now in Louisiana for various reasons, and they do have a very robust kind of spirituality.
Which makes sense because, I mean, if you're in a place like Georgia, it's not exactly a Catholic center, you know. Maybe Atlanta to some degree, but even still, it's a very kind of Baptist.
Church of Chick-fil-A.
Well, the Church of Chick-fil-A also being the second largest church in Georgia. You'd think Church's Chicken would be somewhere there, but it's not. So you have to really be Catholic if you're on a secular university, right? So that's good to hear. In fact, Butker describes how experiencing masses at the Catholic Center gave him an impression of Catholicism that he had never had before. He said there was reverence, and it didn't feel like we just made this up. There is tradition in our liturgy. It is set apart from the world. And I think that's one of the things that Catholics who kind of rediscover their faith through the liturgy, they more often than not will mention that, is that it feels like there is something that I'm digging into that's deeper than myself, right? Some sort of tradition, a treasure chest that I didn't bring to the game. And it is something that is set apart from the world. And that's what we often say about the liturgy, is if it just looks like everything else in the world, and it's not really liturgy. You know, we have secular liturgy. We call it the football game, right? We call it the Olympics and things like that. We have that secular liturgy, but that all has to spill from what we do at Mass, right? You know.
Yeah, I was talking to my sixth graders about this this whole idea, and I was like, what questions do you have? And their questions were, why can't we blank at Mass? And I'm like, because you could do that anywhere. Yeah. Why do we, this? Why don't we have rock music at Mass? I'm like, and it was interesting to see them kind of wrestle with that idea of this is the place where heaven meets earth.
Yeah.
Right. That this isn't just bread and wine. Like, that, I think, was it St. Jean Vianney who said something about if we saw all that was going on at Mass,
we would die.
We would die.
Joy.
And they were like, you die? And I'm like, yeah, you die.
Of joy. Right.
And yet we said, and I was telling them because, I said, it's very sad that I look around and none of y'all are singing, none of y'all are responding, and you guys are like in 6th grade.
Yeah.
You're too young,
I don't want to call out my confirmation kids in my parish, but I'll call out my confirmation kids, at least some of them. Of course, I can see everything, especially when I'm, preaching the homily and whenever I'm turned towards the people for the greeting and things like that. And it's almost like sometimes I could be wrong. If this is you and I'm not being accurate here, it's okay. Let me know. But sometimes it's almost like there's this defiant, I will say nothing. I will not move a muscle. I want you to know that I am here, but I am not present, And that's, that to some degree is kind of an adolescent way that we encounter the world outside of ourselves. And so I'm just glad that you're there. If you are present at Mass, I'm glad that you're there. But there is something that is inviting you deeper, and that's what Harrison here has discovered in going to Mass at the Georgia Tech Catholic campus. He says he credits his appreciation with the faith to the preaching and ministry of Father Joshua Allen, who was the chaplain there in Georgia Tech. And he said he didn't shy away from Catholic truths. He spoke in a charitable way, but in a way that made you hear the truth. You heard what the Catholic Church teaches and why.
Yes.
And so whenever Butker arrived in Kansas City, he made it a priority to find a parish where he could keep this newfound love of Catholicism alive. And that's important, is that at some point, we say that confirmation does this, but we know that confirmation is not the time in which you choose, I will be Catholic. No, that's done from your baptism onward, you see. But there is a time, maybe before your confirmation, maybe after, maybe well after, where all of us have to say, Lord, I want to follow what the church teaches because I want to follow you, and I will take that upon my shoulders, And that's exactly what Harrison did. So when he got to Kansas City, he found a parish, and so he went to St. Mary's, or goes to St. Mary's in Independence, Missouri. It's a drive across the state lines, 40 minutes from his house, but it's his new spiritual home. He said, I was Googling Mass times and looked at diocesan parishes with the Latin Mass because I thought if they are offering the Latin Mass, I know the liturgy was going to be done well. Because his way of kind of coming into the faith was through well done, well celebrated liturgy. And the thing about the traditional Latin Mass is that there's very little deviation because the rubrics are very, very clear, and the priest has to follow the rubrics in a very clear and distinct manner. And so this is what he was looking for. He was looking for, allow me to translate, he's looking for that which is beautiful, And so he's like, well, there's probably going to be a high degree of beauty here if this is a parish that has to kind of cross the T's and dot the I's well.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what he found. When he was asked about why the liturgy needs to be reverent, Butker said, the summit of our faith is the Eucharist. That's what makes us Catholic. You become Catholic because you believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. A priest who celebrates the liturgy well believes what he is doing. And I think that that's very true, Butker, of course, is preparing to enter his 3rd season with the Kansas City Chiefs, and along with his wife Isabel and their newborn son James, they still claim St. Mary's as their parish. But he found, this is what happens too whenever you begin to discover the beauty of who Jesus is through the liturgy. He says that he's not content now just to simply attend Sunday Mass. He says he's noticed that it's very difficult for priests to have time to teach and coordinate altar servers, and there was a need to have boys and young men to serve. He said, so I volunteered. So now he works with his pastor, Father Matthew, to coordinate the servers at Mass. And he says all these boys are just finding out about the Mass and tradition, and they're really liking it. Boy, oh boy.
I would imagine that if I were, a young man and an NFL kicker was coordinating altar servers, I'd be like, sign me up because I'm going to go to that, that meeting.
Sure. Well,
you'd be
exactly.
like kicking little other boys in the shins to get the opportunity to,
That's true. Yeah. And that's the thing about it too, is it's really quite telling whenever we're saying that if somebody famous were at my parish coordinating my servers, I'd sign up. But in every parish, would that we have kind of older young men who maybe, they might be high school phenoms or whatever, but wouldn't it be great if they had if they were providing an opportunity for boys to look up to them? That's what's supposed to happen, and it just so happens that Harrison is a Kansas City Chiefs kicker. So definitely a plus there. But there's this need for heroes, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show as well. And so let's see. So he's training servers, and he's forging friendships with other priests. And so he actually he began to celebrate to serve the extraordinary form of the Mass. So that's what another name for the traditional Latin Mass is, the extraordinary form of the Mass. Whereas the Mass that you and I tend to attend every Sunday in English is called the ordinary form of the Mass. Pope Benedict makes that distinction. And so Butker began to organize and serve the first solemn Mass in the extraordinary form that was ever offered at St. Michael's Parish in Leawood, Kansas, which is just a few minutes from their family home. So not the 40-minute away parish, but the one that's closer. Yeah. And so looking ahead, Butker says that he hopes to continue to promote the sacred liturgy in the Kansas City area. But as a new father, he's also taking his duties as a parent seriously and has been building a library of books on theology to educate himself and his wife further in the faith. He says, you can witness through your life, but you also need to witness through catechesis, which comes through education. And as the father of the family, it's my responsibility to pass on the truths of the faith to my children. From
a religion teacher, thank you.
Praise God. Like that's literally what catechesis means. It comes from this word that means to sound down. And like that sounding down is most effective when it comes from the people who have natural authority and natural love and protection for that child, right? If it comes from someone that they've never met before, but all of a sudden is giving them grades on things, and they have this kind of like artificial like relationship within an educational system, it's not as meaningful as like when it comes from your dad.
It's very true, and that's where we get into trying to find the silver bullet, if you will, for catechesis in the parish. And as it turns out, that the sure arrow that will always point straight is when the parents are doing exactly like Harrison's doing. It's like I take my faith seriously, and I take my motherhood for a mom seriously, and I've got to pass that on to my children. And so I'm building a library. I'm going to the parish. I'm taking an interest in the liturgy. I'm the one who's asked questions about my faith. These are the things that are essential. If we want our kids to see the faith as not something that's foreign to them. Kids are going to be kids, right? They're going to kind of buck the system a little bit. They're going to be like some of my confirmation kids who are kind of like, I just want you to see that I'm not opening my mouth. But at the same time, something's going on in the heart. And as parents, you can either give them the tools to unlock what's going on in their heart when the time is right, or you can just say, there's nothing, that's not really important to us, So those are some of the things that perhaps Harrison is kind of getting at the heart at. And as a young Catholic, what a beautiful thing. And, as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs football team too, because that also spills over into how you play the game. That's the other thing too, is that sometimes we can believe that little falsehood that my Catholic faith belongs in this Tupperware container. Sure. But no, you necessarily become a better sportsman. You necessarily become a better father, a better mother. You necessarily become a better human being to the degree that you allow the Lord Jesus Christ into your heart to transform it. Right. And I don't want to pick sides here, but as of the time we're coming on the air, there's already been a couple of points scored by Harrison on that football game over on another channel. But, just a couple. But that's a really cool thing. And so congrats to Harrison on rediscovering your faith. Congrats to your new family. And congrats to what is coming next for you. And I'm not talking about a possible win. I'm talking about the depth of the rest of the Catholic adventure. And it is an adventure indeed. And so we wish you all the best. In fact, I dare say we could offer a Catholic Underground hats off to Harrison for being a good dad, a good football player, a good Catholic. All right, one of the things that we want to remind you of, as we often do at this time in the show, and it's good that we do so, it's that we are the Catholic Underground. a slow burn here on the Catholic Underground this week. Alrighty, yeah, you're listening to the Catholic Underground. We're online at catholicunderground.tv, and that's actually where every week, if you happen to be listening to us live on Facebook or on the internet at catholicunderground.tv, you can hang out in the chat room with us, which we hope you would. If you're listening to the podcast, we're always glad that you're there too. I'm Father Chris, joined by Kathleen Lee and Olivia Gulino and Jeff Blackwell, and Ed is in the video cave. Our picks of the week are coming up in just a little while, but first, we thought we'd kind of carry through and maybe dovetail on this surfboard of, of Harrison Butker being kind of a hero to servers.
If you're looking at, especially in light of the NFL and the football game that is going on, right? I guarantee you that if I ask my 6th grade boys, who is your favorite NFL player, they'll list like 50 billion. And then they're like, oh, and then let's talk about basketball. I'm like, okay, wait, let's stick with football, right? But everybody is looking for a hero or giants in our lives, or superstars, or somebody that we look up to. We need someone to make us feel small. And this is a weird thing, not a bad small, right? But small. We need somebody bigger than us, or something to aspire to. And as Christians, we need people who loved and love currently, right, God more than we do, so that we can push ourselves. I'm always asking my students, like, I made a line. I said, this is the requirements for living the Christian life, the Catholic life, right? And you live right here. You are boring. And they were like, what? And I was like, and I was like, and right now, your parents are kind of in charge of that, but like, we have adults who are living right above the line. And if we're not looking upwards and forward and aspiring to be something better and greater, then we are boring, right?
Oh, the spiritual poverty line. I like that.
Yes, right?
Well, I feel like that's very Thomistic. Aquinas says something like that about how like the 10 Commandments are the minimum of charity. Right. So like if all you do is follow the 10 Commandments,
every time
right.
time my students ask me, from what I've from when I've been teaching high school students, now junior high, but can I do this? Is that okay? And I was like, can you? Sure. Should you? No. Like,
and the other part of that too is it's difficult to talk about morality,
right,
unless you speak first about the relationship of the one to whom I should be moral, right? And I guess that's where looking up to somebody bigger than I am, that loves God more than I am, comes into it, is before you can even go, they did and they didn't do that, so I should or shouldn't do that.
Right.
You first look and say, look at how they love.
Right. And of course, we're talking about who we should look up to, the saints. Right? And our good friend C.S. Lewis liked to call All Saints Day Christian Heroes Day.
I like that.
I like that too, because it's not just, All Saints Day and it's the day after Halloween, where we're recovering from a sugar coma, right? But this is Christian Heroes Day, the day that we're looking at people who have lived the Christian life, the Catholic life, right? And we're saying, I want to be like that. Okay, here's my New Year's resolution starting on November 1st. I'm going to be more like Saint fill in the blank, right? And he liked the idea of the saints as heroes and superstars. And, I know with young people, I'm always trying to get these people. I was talking about Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati yesterday, the other day in class. And I was like, and y'all, he smoked a pipe. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. And he's almost a saint. So like this idea of making these people real, because sometimes we can look at the saints and go, I'm never gonna, right?
And the first question is not, so is it okay to smoke a pipe?
Right.
The first question is, who is that?
Yeah.
Who is Pier Giorgio Frassati?
Right. Yeah. And C.S. Lewis worried that we are a little too comfortable and familiar to learn from these great Christians, right? In his book he wrote called Letters to Malcolm, he explained that his grandfather said that his grandfather looked forward to having some very interesting conversations with St. Paul when he got to heaven, right? His grandfather thought of himself and the apostle as, quote, two clerical gentlemen talking at ease in a club.
Yeah.
Right? Do we approach the saints this way? Are they, you put an S and a T and a period in front of their name, and then it becomes somebody that, they lived
unidentifiable,
a mystical life, which many of them did, but a mystical, unachievable life, Yeah.
If you've ever known somebody who's holy, like really, to use an Olivia word, legit holy, And a Kathleen word too, because you use, yeah. If you meet somebody like that in your life, you realize that there is something going on in their life because they're close to Jesus in a way that you are not. But you also can have a conversation with them. You know, they are real people, and the saints are that. They are real people.
Right.
You know, just because they are presently dead does not mean that they aren't more alive than we are right now.
Right. Right. So Lewis goes on to say that saints keep on reminding us that we are very small people compared with them, right? And again, this idea that we're small, not in a bad way, right? But that, you know, where are we in terms of the line, of the minimum line, right? How much smaller before their master are we? You know, and where can we aspire to? So we probably think of ourselves more like his grandfather than we want to admit, right? Saved by grace as we are, we imagine ourselves the equals of everyone else who is saved by this grace. Yeah. Right. We imagine ourselves sprinting across the finish line at the end of the marathon, side by side with the world's greatest runners. Right? Imagine, like, if you're running a race, which it's hard for me to imagine because I don't run races. Okay.
Preach.
I sit on the side and go for you. I'll get you some jambalaya at the end, right? But imagine you're running the race with sprinters like, you know, St. Mother Teresa, St. John Paul II, like these people. Where are you in terms of that? I know, you know, physically, I'm at the back of the line. Yeah. Spiritually, I'm at the back of the line.
I'm gasping at the starting line.
Yeah. And so, in fact, we get across only because Jesus and his friends, the saints, right? And those in heaven carried us across. Yeah. I can imagine myself here at the end of the race. I'm lying on the street. I'm shaking. I'm sweaty. I'm gasping for air. I can't breathe, right? I'm throwing up whatever was, whatever water
Your
I
jambalaya that you pre-ate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, right? And the great runners, those great saints, finished hours earlier, right? And they're standing around. This just drives me crazy. When somebody finishes a 5K in like 10 minutes, and then they're like, oh, what to do with the rest of my day? All right? But they're helping us as we can. But
that's right.
They can't do much, right? But they can help us. The saints, of course, help us, right? But we have to look at our own state and see how can we help ourselves, right? So what do you do when you're training for this race? When you're gonna... when you're looking at yourself besides a St. Mother Teresa, what do you do, right? Number one, if I were going to run a 5K, which has been several years my New Year's resolution. How many have I gotten to? None. Okay. Right.
It's always next year.
Yeah. I often look at my friends who are runners. Okay, what do you do, right? I imitate them.
Yeah. And like if you think about it from a football perspective, what do? You watch film of the people you're going up against, right? The ones you want to try to be like so that you can get where they were the last game.
Exactly, right? You would train the way that they do. You eat what they eat. You what is your exercise routine? What are you doing when you're not running? You like trim all the distracting pleasures out of your life, all the cakes, all the candy, all the, I hear that a lot of runners don't drink a lot of alcohol, right? Because it can affect you. Right? You dedicate yourself to training.
O2 level.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But you dedicate yourself to training, just like they do. Right. They show you what greatness is and what it costs. And a lot of the saints, it costs a lot. To be great. If you look at their lives, I don't think I've read about one saint who was just like, my life is awesome and the Lord has blessed everything that I've done. I've never suffered and I got a halo at the end of it. No.
Yeah, the saints never would hashtag themselves blessed.
No.
Ever.
No. Right?
I don't think.
And so not stressed.
Right. Yeah. And so that's what we're looking for. If you want to be like the saints, you got to train like the saints. And it can't be like me when I look at running, I'll do that tomorrow, right? It has to be today. You can read about any saint and any, their prayer life, what they dedicated their time to, the suffering that went on in their life. And that's not to say like you walk out into the world and go, okay, where can I make myself suffer, right? But how do you deal with the inevitable suffering that comes into your life?
That's right.
How do you deal with, hard times?
Yeah, and that's really what makes the saint is the ability of the saint to receive the suffering that comes to them.
Yeah.
And do we join that to the race that Christ is running alongside of us?
Exactly.
And have we yoked ourselves to him?
Right. Yeah. And so what does that mean for us? A lot of times when you look at our society and what's going on in society, it means saying no to that.
Yeah.
It means,
and that can bring about suffering.
Yeah. So you want to know what Christian courage saying no to society looks like and how to do it, right? Look at the early Christian martyrs, Polycarp, Ignatius, right, whom the Romans fed to the animals because they loved Jesus. I was talking to my students the other day about martyrdom, and I said, do you guys really, because it was Catholic Schools Week. We just celebrated it, if you're listening to us live this past week. And, I said, do you guys realize what a gift you have?
Yeah.
I said, there are people in today's world who are dying because they profess their belief in Jesus.
That's right. There was a Nigerian seminarian that was killed just this week.
Yeah. Exactly. And I said, I was honest with my students. I said, I struggle with that question. I don't know if somebody came up and asked me, do you believe in Jesus? And and if I said yes, they would take my life. I would like to say what my answer would be, but what would go through my mind, what would go through my heart, right? Or you look at saints like Thomas More, right, who's saying no to the murderous King Henry VIII, right, who's standing up against, political pressure, right? Or you look at modern Christians who stood up to the Nazis, like St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, or Edith Stein. These are people who, are huge saints in our lives, but if you look at their lives, it wasn't, it was one moment or small things that they did, that built up. It wasn't, they got off the couch and ran, the Olympic race and won. It was they lived their life every day, saying no to things and saying yes to things that the Lord was asking them to say yes to.
Yep.
And that's what the saints are, heroes, right? These heroes, what they should be to us, not just something that's unobtainable, but people that we strive to be like. Right, models, teachers, right? Not just somebody that we put on a nice holy card with gold leaf all around it and say that's real nice for them, right? But we look at them and we, they don't just inspire us; they show us how it's done,
right?
And then we say, "I'm going to do that," and then guess what? We do it.
That's right.
Right.
They show us the cost, they show us how to win, and then they show us how to be victorious.
Yes, indeed.
We hope that you'll be victorious in this long life, but also with us on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Welcome back. You found the Catholic Underground with me, Father Chris Decker, with Kathleen Lee, Olivia Gulino, Jeff Blackwell, Ed Ball. Our picks of the week are coming up, but we thought we would kind of continue this ride on heroism in Christianity, specifically talking a little bit about celibacy, because it's been in the news again, as it often is, especially if you follow that very strange place that we call Catholic Twitter. Yeah. So it's Twitter, but it's all sorts of kind of different groups and subgroups happening on the Catholic wing of Twitter, and it's a strange place, and it can get a little heated. There is some good dialogue, but then there's just some weird dialogue, and then there's some mean dialogue too. And in that kind of wading through it, there's always this question about priestly celibacy. And so we thought that we'd talk a little bit about priestly celibacy today, but through the lens of a priest who is married, Father Dwight Longenecker, right. Who has a blog and all sorts of things, and has a parish there in one of the Carolinas, North Carolina, I believe. Yeah. And he actually has kind of taken point and said, well, okay, let's talk about priestly celibacy, because as I hear a lot myself as a priest who's celibate and unmarried, Father wouldn't be so lonely if he were married, or priests, if they could marry, we'd solve the priest shortage. And there are all these other things as well. There wouldn't be sexual abuse if priests could marry, and all those old chestnuts. And so we thought we'd kind of wade into the conversation a little bit today. Because to be celibate is to be heroic, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is an issue that people, kind of like Father was giving you examples of, if people are going to make broad, sweeping statements with these like heroic kind of seeming conclusions, it's really going to be on this topic, right? If you can maybe like poll people and ask them like, well, what do you think is going to, it depends on the person, but if you ask them like, what do you think is going to solve, you know, X, Y, and Z issues, a lot of times this is the answer that you'll get. And I think it's because we have this kind of false rhetoric that bounces around in our mind. And I love Father Dwight's, or Father Longenecker, I don't know what he prefers to go by. I'm a first name kind of, you know what I mean? There's maybe a Southern thing. Anyway, but I love his perspective on it. Number one, because he's married, but number two, he goes straight for the heart of sacramental theology. Yeah. He goes straight for the heart of what celibacy is. And he kind of circumvents all the bluff, I guess, that people tend to hang their hat on that really isn't that substantial. Yeah.
It's societally substantial.
Exactly.
Because it is seen as a privation in society.
Yeah. And he points out a couple of things before we get into what he says, you know, the positive aspect of what celibacy is. He points out some issues, and I wanted to bring those up. So he says that, first of all, a lot of times when people talk about priestly celibacy and abolishing that discipline for the sake of, you know, allowing married priests, he says that a lot of times there's this over-reliance on the witness of the early church, and this is not the only area that we see people relying on the witness of the early church in a almost like disproportionate sense. Yeah. Like the issue of like female deacons is one of those other areas where like people like they find that nail and then they just hang everything on it.
Even though there's a whole row of nails.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with the same issue.
Exactly. And so he says that, you know, certainly the voice of the early church and the early church fathers is vital to this discussion. Sure. Can't deny that. But that a strong element in the early witness is an understanding of celibacy that was influenced by something called Manichaeism. And that's a particular kind of dualism that places the body at war with the spirit. Yeah. And anything material, anything that you can, you know, feel, touch, taste, see as being somewhat like evil or derived from evil, and that the only thing that's good and the only thing that you can trust is pure spirit. And so what that ends up creating, the problem that ends up creating is things like the body are bad. The body is just a temptation. The body is a prison, things like that. And therefore things like the sexual act are bad, are dirty, are sinful. And obviously that is not the case. The sexual act in and of itself, in the context for which it's intended, is beautiful. But if you have that kind of philosophy echoing in the background of what they're saying, and if we don't, because we don't understand that, right? If you tell someone nowadays like Manichaeism is, you know, at the heart of, you know, whatever maybe particular church fathers are like trying to either counteracting or are like, you know, hearing whispers of, then we don't understand that language anymore. Yeah,
we don't have a framework for understanding those philosophical ways that governed people's lives. I mean, St. Augustine is the best example of somebody who had taken Manichaeanism in as a philosophy of life, only to discover in the preaching of St. Ambrose, ooh, this is not right. This cannot bring me to the end for which I desire, which is God.
Exactly. And so the second thing, kind of hinging off of that, is that something that Father Dwight finds troubling about this argument in favor of celibacy is that those who seem to like be on that side, I guess I don't want to put sides in this, but they seem almost like unwilling to accept or even listen to arguments from the other side, and that's not unique to this issue.
No, right?
Yeah. You go on Twitter, Catholic Twitter, if you just go outside in Walmart, they're going to find people that are digging their heels in on something. And so like the unwillingness to dialogue is an issue. Also because that usually stems from a kind of insecurity, right? If you're unwilling to even hear the ideas of another person, it's usually because you don't have at least inherently that much faith in what you're saying, or you're afraid that something is going to come and shake your understanding, or you're just going to feel attacked or something like that.
Or you're going to see your position as indefensible because you don't have all the information. And so it's always easier just to kind of throw somebody a an elbow, right?
Exactly.
Out of my way, right?
As in Walmart.
As in many big box stores.
Well, yeah. It's a metaphor for life, really.
It is. So.
And then the third problem that he points out is that a lot of advocates for priestly celibacy sometimes allow themselves to fall into these pragmatic or sentimental modes of argumentation. And I think this is really important because these are the things that you hear all the time, right? So things like, well, a celibate priest is going to always be there for his church and for Christ 24/7. A married man has to look after his wife and kids, right? Like they're like his family is some kind of distraction. Like that's their at heart, their essence. And also that like a priest, his sole role is functionary, right? That he's just like a cog in the machine, and he is the machine that makes the parish run. And if you
that's not true.
And if you add in a family, then the machine's going to be more inefficient. You know what I mean? Like it reduces a whole slew of people and their dignity.
Yeah, these are some of the kind of the pragmatic arguments that people, or sentimental, if you say, as you say, arguments people say of why celibacy is a part of our life. But it's deeper than that, right?
Right. And I mean, some people might cite St. Paul in that because St. Paul makes a similar
kind of pragmatic.
Yeah, pragmatic argument. But at the time, you got to keep in mind that that practice was still coming into kind of development, right? They were still developing these practices, and they were also still developing the theology, right? That's what theology is. It's a growing, it's a living thing.
Yep.
Not that it's, constantly we're like taking books off the shelf, burning them and making room for more, but it's a constant development, right? So
it's a deepening, if you will, of an understanding of what the Lord is asking of his church.
Exactly. And so Father Dwight says that the sentimental argument is tied up with unrealistic visions of the priesthood. And I think this is really important, in which when the holy priest is not on his knees in prayer or administering last rites to a dying soul, he's reading a holy book or he's planning some great new project for the Lord in his parish. And he says, yes, well, maybe, but not always.
That's right, yeah.
Right?
It's not like on every police procedural that needs a priest in it, they walk into any church and there's a priest sitting like 3 rows from the back.
Yeah, lighting candles.
Lighting a candle or snuffing a candle out.
I do love that. Like, or sometimes it's like an archbishop or something, like on Blue Bloods.
There's
Have you ever
random
They're always
cardinal.
investments. And I'm like,
That's right.
okay.
Who has mass at 10:36 on a weekday?
Right?
They're just hanging out in the church like, what can I do? I guess I might paint something. I don't know.
Right.
And I think
sometimes maybe, but not always.
Not always. And I think it's an unrealistic expectation anyway. Like it's similar, not the same, but similar to saying like if a teacher isn't doing something related to their life as a teacher, then they're not really being a good teacher.
Right.
Like if you ever see
Kathleen, eye roll and cue.
But like if you ever see a priest out at a restaurant, like he's not abandoning his post, like he can eat with friends.
Right.
It's fine.
And we can say things other than, you look troubled, my son.
Yes. Yeah.
Come hither.
That's right.
All the children come to me.
That's right.
So I guess like cutting through all of that and realizing that both sides of the priestly celibacy argument, if you want to call it, it's certainly not a dialogue. We have to contend with the question that what is the point of priestly celibacy? And so like Father Dwight had mentioned, that there's this Manichaeanist dualistic tendency towards understanding priestly celibacy. And he says, so first we have to dismiss the idea that the sexual act in and of itself is dirty or wrong or sinful. He says it is not inferior, filthy, nasty, or sinful for a man to be intimate with his wife. In fact, it is beautiful, right? And he says that if he is a priest, this physical action in and of itself is no more harmful to his priesthood than blowing his nose, getting a cold, defecating, any other physical action.
Now that you mention it.
And so and that comes to the heart of that priestly celibacy is something that happens on the level of the soul. Right? It's not at war with the body, and in fact it's something that that can like deepen the physical movements of the person, right? Because you are a priest forever according to the line of Melchizedek. So that this marital act would never be at war with the priestly with a priest's celibacy. And he says that to be sure, it could be twisted and the relationship could be distorted and sinful, but the action on its own is not sinful, right? But that's what the church says about the marital act.
Right. It is
in any situation.
Yeah, in and of itself, it is not sinful.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then he says, second, we should dismiss all the practical points. Love this, right? He says, yes, the celibate man is more available and ready to serve, but we all know plenty of celibate priests who are not. We can. All right. And he says that we can assure you that married men also get up out of bed at 3 a.m. to drive across town to anoint someone. And for every practical point you make in favor of priestly celibacy, Father Dwight says, I can give you a point of equal weight opposed. And for every practical point you make in favor of married priests, I can give you a point of equal weight opposed, right? So you're always going to be able to find practical implications on either side that will kind of counterbalance whatever you're proposing. Right. And again, I think that relying on those sentimental or functionary points of argumentation really just reduce the dignity of the priest, right? As a person. Right. Right. And not to mention reduce their priesthood to just this like vending machine for the sacraments.
It's true. I have to say that I have felt like that before. Again, maybe because people don't understand kind of the depth and the mystery of the priesthood. I mean, I don't know that I understand it all that well sometimes. But yeah, there is so much more to it than just mere functionality. And I think especially in our kind of hyper-industrialized society, we tend to look at people according to what they can or cannot do for me, and we can tend to look at marriage that way. Boy, do we. Mm-hmm. And we can look at priesthood and even parish life that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to kind of realize how to proceed, he says that we first have to meditate on, okay, what is priestly celibacy?
Yeah, why would it be here anyway?
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, if we don't understand why we do something, then we're going to start to shed that thing. We're going to start to forget that thing. Mm-hmm. And so he said that to understand what it is, we have to see that the end point of ordination is for the man to be uniquely configured to Christ. Mm-hmm. Right? He says that the Catholic priest really is supposed to be transformed into this alter Christus, this other Christ, in a depth that's different from lay people, right? People who are not ordained, right? There's what's called an ontological change. That's actually my favorite joke to make after a priest gets ordained, or a deacon, and I'll like write them a card and I'll be like, enjoy your ontological change. And
right, exactly.
Like, love Olivia. Because that ontology, on the level of their being, they are different and they are forever different. Even if their faculties, are somehow rescinded or if they don't, act in the mode of a priest anymore later on in life, they are always on the level of their soul, a priest.
In the same way that you are always baptized and always confirmed.
Exactly.
A man who's ordained a priest is never not a priest, even if he's not functioning as one for any number of reasons.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so celibacy is a tool that the church has given. It's a discipline, not a dogma, but it's a tool that the church has given to assist and to strengthen that configuration of the particular man, the priest, to Christ. Yeah. Right? If that's the end goal of ordination, and it's a goal that's renewed every day. Yeah, right?
And it is.
Right? It just like the goal of being married is to be married to your spouse every day, right? Because the end goal is the sanctification of your spouse. So every day you approach that day with that goal in mind, right? Yeah. And all of your actions tend toward that end. For the priest, it's the same way, right? Their ultimate goal is their greater configuration to the person of Christ and the greater drawing of the church toward that person.
Right. And that's actually where the pragmatism begins to make sense in where the priest, by following the discipline of celibacy, remember, it's not a dogma, it's not required for our belief, and you can't be a Catholic unless you believe a priest is celibate. No, it's a discipline. Remember, discipline is a root word, means to follow, right? To be a disciple. And so the priest undergoes this discipline of celibacy so that he can be configured closer to the heart of Christ, not just at the level of his being, but in the level of his doing every day. Yeah. And when a priest does that in the mode of his celibacy, he is actually co-creating with God this spiritual fruit, whereby he is drawn closer to his spiritual children, and they are drawn closer to their spiritual father, and they are therefore drawn closer to God. Mm-hmm. You see, and so there is a pragmatism, but it is a deeper pragmatism than, well, I'm just available all the time, or but there is a real kind of a spiritual component to it that we can't separate. And that's where the priest is a tool in the best sense, a tool of the church to bring people to Jesus Christ. And it's not magic. I mean, it's important, it's not. It's not this thing that's just automatic. No, right. But it is a gift that is given. I don't want to jump ahead, but one of the ways that we get this is if you turn your Bible to Matthew chapter 19, verse 12, he's talking about eunuchs, those who don't have use of their sexual faculties. He says there are eunuchs who've been so from birth. There are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, those who have been castrated for any number of reasons. And then there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can. Jesus himself is telling us that this is not just about pragmatism, but there is a witness to withholding one's sexual faculties for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. And it is something that can be given and is given by God, that can be accepted by the men to whom it is offered. And as such, if God is able to offer that, then it means he's going to do something through it. Yeah. He's going to create a new family, if you will, through that.
Yeah, and it's especially not magic because it's a gift that's given to a particular person, like Father was saying, like the person who is most disposed and is most ready to answer that call, of course, with the help of God's grace. Yeah. But it also, it's not like this coverall, this this fix-all. It's not Gorilla Glue for like someone's sexuality, right?
No, absolutely not.
It requires virtue on the part of the person.
Exactly, and a constant kind of diving into the virtuous life, the grace that Christ offers, because that's where we would say that it doesn't matter. It has, or I should say, it wouldn't solve a priesthood shortage. It wouldn't solve a sexual abuse crisis. It doesn't solve any of these things. Because priestly celibacy can only ennoble, only ennobles marriage, and it ennobles the right treatment of children, the right treatment of others. And so, just allowing a priest to itself is kind of a pragmatic attempt at a solution for a deeper spiritual problem, know?
Well, and especially the idea that that allowing priests to marry would somehow fix the sexual abuse crisis. I think that denigrates the dignity of woman because she's somehow a vehicle for someone's sexual desire. Yeah. But also it just ignores all the psychological aspects of that too. Exactly. So these things are much more complex than just kind of placing a Band-Aid on top of something and
That's true.
We're done.
That's right. And it's worth saying that especially in this day and time, priests undergo a great deal of psychological evaluation and constant batteries of psychological and psycho-spiritual education to make sure that the choice that we're making here in the West, where priests do not marry, that this is something that we're willing to accept and that the Lord has offered it to us as a gift, because there are many who enter the seminary who the Lord has not offered that gift to, right? He has not desired to make them eunuchs for the kingdom. He will make them great fathers. He will make them great men, but they're not called to be priests. And that's part of the discernment process too. And that's really kind of a beautiful thing as well. I mean, if I kind of meditate upon my own priesthood, what a gift and mystery that is, and we don't just kind of throw gifts and mysteries back in the face of God, the one who gave it to us, but rather we say, Lord, I want to go deeper into this great gift. And to the priest who does that, well, he's necessarily going to bring his people closer to God, but he himself is also going to please be made a saint because of it, Yeah, so there's something more to it than that.
And I love what Father Dwight says, that the Spirit's work through celibacy in particular, but the Holy Spirit's work through, a man's priesthood, a man's vocation, is like the sculptor chipping away at the block of marble to bring out the masterpiece, and celibacy is his sharpest chisel.
It is a sharp chisel. Chisel, but it's a good one.
Sharp darn chisel.
It's a sharp chisel. Yeah.
So of course there are married priests, if you're familiar with the Byzantine rite,
sure.
And the Eastern rites of the church.
22 other rites of the church that make up the Catholic Church. There are 23, and we're just one of them.
Exactly. Most of those do allow married priests,
but never married bishops.
And they're called to that same configuration with Christ. But they're open to God accomplishing that configuration through marriage instead of celibacy. Again, the celibacy in the Roman rite, in the Latin rite, is a discipline, right? But he says that burning fire that surges through with God's grace through celibacy for most men must for us, talking about married priests, burn through their marriage and a sexuality which must, by its nature of being more involved with another person and with children, be more messy and unpredictable.
And most
right? But God
I
can
know,
still work there.
Most priests I know who are married, who maybe were of a different denomination and then came into the church with their family and sought holy orders, they would be the first to say, yeah, it's more messy and unpredictable, not because God can't work through it, but he works in the midst of that discipline that is normative in the Latin church, right? Yeah. So really kind of a beautiful thing for sure. And we hope that we've helped to kind of crack open a little bit this discussion about celibacy, because it's something that you probably get if you're just, regular Joe or Jane Catholic, and you do have to make a choice based upon the truth and not just upon kind of a gut feeling of, it really would be good if priests could marry because, on all these pragmatic reasons. No, there's something deeper. And one of the things that we always invite you to do is to go a little bit deeper than just what the rest of the world is saying. Because while the rest of the world may not always be wrong, there's often more to the story. So we'll give you some of the show note links so that you can actually read a little bit more for yourself. And maybe whenever somebody says, oh, you're a Catholic, well, I think you'll be able to listen, as we said at the top of the segment, and you'll be able to respond and say, this is who Jesus is, and this is who the church is because of that. This is what the church is because this is who Jesus tells us he is, and this is what he asks of his priests. So we hope that helps. Something else every week that we hope that helps you on your pilgrim journey is that part of the show that we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
And for our first pick of the week, why don't we go to Kathleen? Because we always do. And
all
it's
right.
like a fireworks show with Kathleen.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know.
Thanks, Father.
The fireworks show happens when you play this game. I found that I'm a little, competitive. And
you, Kathleen?
What's the other word? Not kind. Okay, when I play this game.
She could be on a football team.
Yeah. It's called Blank Slate. And what happens is everybody gets a little, whiteboard with a marker. And whoever's turn it is pulls a card and it says, blank cake or
King.
Yeah. And so so let's say it was blank cake. You write down what you think. If one other person matches with you, you get 3 points. If more than one person matches, if more than one person matches with you, you only get 1 point. If nobody matches with you, if you're just that oddball out, which sometimes I am,
I go always off would be.
Way out,
because I'd say DeBurge.
You get nothing. So the object is to match with one person. Yeah. It's to not be so common that you match with a whole bunch of people, but not to be so unique that you match with nobody, but that who you're playing with and you can make mental eyes at them and be like, come on. So it's a really fun game. I've been playing it with some friends in a ministry called Dumox here in Louisiana, and every time we get together, we play this game. It's incredible, super fun, super easy. We've played it with adults and kids all in one batch. It's pretty easy, and there's a lot it's like a lot of players you can have. So you can find it at Target or Walmart for about $20 or something. But Blank Slate.
Blank Slate. Yeah. All right. Olivia, who was never a blank slate on the Catholic Underground.
Thank you. I just want to say I have played Blank Slate. Hearing you describe it, I was like, yes, I have, and incredibly fun. Yeah. So my pick of the week is a store called Five Below.
Yep.
I don't know if anyone's familiar.
Oh, is that I've seen them. I thought it was an ice cream store.
I did originally too. I thought it was like a gigantic frozen yogurt depot, but
which would be fine.
That would be great, but it's not. It's kind of like if Dollar Tree and Target had a baby. Because and I had never been in there before today, but I went in looking for some exercise things that my PT physical therapist recommended. They have all kinds of workout stuff, like exercise balls and legit bands and resistance tubes and things like that. And then they have these little cute organizational stuff for your house. They have wrappings for presents. They have games and crafts, and it's nice stuff.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by the quality, but also that the style of everything. It's not just this is literally the cheapest thing that we could make, and we spent 5 minutes on this design.
Right.
So I was really impressed, but it's those typical kind of dollar store prices where everything is under a certain price. So this one's everything's under $5. But yeah, I was very impressed. So
cool.
Be surprised at what you can find at Five Below.
So no yogurt, but
no, but I mean, I'm sure there's one nearby because this is America.
Right. There's frozen yogurt to those who ask. Speaking of frozen yogurt, Jeff Blackwell, what's going on up there on the satellite?
Step outside of the satellite, instant.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, you know the first three letters of funeral are fun.
True.
And the first three letters of diet are die.
Yep.
And it's through the intercession of St. Charles Borromeo, patron saint of the obese and dieters, that my journey involves dying to lifelong bad eating habits.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So I started January 5th.
Yep.
And I've kind of discovered some great snack alternatives. And it's basically like a low carb, not keto. It's a non-gimmick thing. It's not a club or pills you take. It's just watching what you eat and the portions. So
to that end,
low carb, high protein, and there's this wonderful company. It's actually owned by Oberto, the original turkey jerky people.
Oh yeah.
They have Lawry's. They call them bacon curls, but they're actually pork rinds, and you microwave them. 2 minutes in the microwave, fresh hot bag.
And they crackle.
Oh yes,
like a bowl of Rice Krispies, but made of pork.
And the sweet thing about you could eat the entire bag if you wanted to. About 180 calories, less than a candy bar. But of course, you're looking at high protein and less than a gram of carbs. So anyway,
cool.
I like them with queso.
Yeah.
And I make a tuna salad.
Yeah.
Eggs, tuna, mayo, and sugar-free pickles, relish.
Oh, yeah.
So
very cool.
Too. So anyway, that's my pick of the week.
All right, that's that. And Jeff shared some of those Orville Porkenbachers with me, and they're pretty darn tasty, I have to say. I'm thinking of getting myself.
Porkenbachers,
I may have violated copyright.
No, you
anyway,
didn't.
My pick of the week is Dr. John Bergsma and Dr. Brant Petrie's Catholic Introduction to the Bible, the Old Testament volume. It's big, it's thick, but it is a beautiful, beautiful introduction to reading the Bible. So maybe if you've made I should read the Bible thing, this is a good purchase, and you can go book by book, and it gives you really a good lowdown from all of the beautiful Catholic sources throughout the ages with the church fathers, etc. So that's my pick of the week. We're always grateful, aren't we, Jeff, for our benefactors, for those who pray for us, for those who support us.
Absolutely, Father Chris. And this week, the Catholic Underground is possible because of people just like you. Join the growing number of undergrounders at CatholicUnderground.com/donate. An important way to support us is to like us, heart us, star us, and share us on your social media platform of choice. We appreciate you.
That's true, and do leave us a review if you happen to find us on Spotify or any of the other ways that you get podcasts, and that's what helps to kind of bump us up in the ratings a little bit. So please do that. Our panelists this week have been Olivia Gulino. I'm sorry, I usually say Kathleen. Sorry, Olivia Gulino. She's at the.real.omg. And Kathleen Lee, sorry, Kathleen. She's the faith ninja. She's sneaky there, huh?
Hiya.
Jeff Blackwell is our technical director at Jeff Blackwellis on all the social media. Our research assistant and the leader of the crew in the lab is Jim Hayes. Our video and graphics director is Ed Ball. You know me. I'm Father Chris Decker. You can find me online at Digital Catholic on Instagram and on Twitter. We hope that we've helped you to cut through the noise and find that still small voice. We're the Catholic Underground. We're Faith Gone Digital, and we'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.